Welcome to our San Francisco Mayoral Candidate Forum at the Museum of the African Diaspora. This forum is hosted by several of the city's most prominent business and hospitality organizations: Advance SF, the SF Chamber of Commerce, the Bay Area Council, BOMA SF, the Hotel Council of San Francisco, the Golden Gate Restaurant Association, and SF Travel. The aim is to hear from each candidate equally in a neutral setting. We're hosting 5 separate interviews. Each candidate will be asked identical questions. There may be an opportunity for a few follow-up questions per candidate. Each interview is 45 minutes and in front of a live audience. The Coalition of Host Organizations is not endorsing any candidates, and these interviews are being made public for educational purposes. Let's get started with former Supervisor and Mayor Mark Farrell.
Thanks for having me.
What is driving you to be mayor?
You know, I am proud to be a born and raised San Franciscan, and I am proud that my wife Liz and I are raising our 3 children here in San Francisco. And I'm running for mayor because I believe in our city. You know, I believe we have everything going for us. The beauty around us, a day like today, I always say you can't help but fall in love with our city. We have our parks, we have our universities in city in the Bay Area. But more than anything, we have the people of San Francisco. You know, we have a spirit and an ethos about us that is unique around the world. And I believe it's worth fighting for and it's worth protecting. Reality is City Hall's lost its way over the last few years. All of a sudden, public safety is the #1 issue. The conditions of our streets have gotten worse, and our local economy has completely hit the skids. And I'm running for mayor because I believe that we need new leadership in City Hall to bring our city back, that I'm the person that has not only the background, but also the vision for the city of San Francisco to bring our city forward for the next 4 years.
We're here in downtown San Francisco at the beautiful MOAD. What are your plans for a thriving downtown, for the business community, for residents, for workers, for sports and cultural institutions?
So, first and foremost, I believe we need to focus on the core issues of public safety and street conditions, especially downtown, if we're going to create an environment where employers and employees want to come back to the downtown core, back to work. You know, I believe it affects residents every single day throughout our neighborhoods, but also as we're talking about downtown, I believe we need to first focus on those issues. It is the reason why people and conventions left the city of San Francisco. When we start to make progress on these issues, hopefully it'll be the reason people start to come back to the city of San Francisco, and particular conventions. Conventions feed the hospitality industry here in downtown. They feed hotels, they feed restaurants all year round. And I believe focusing on those core issues, as I've done in my campaign, as I did when I was a member of the Board of Supervisors and as mayor, are fundamental. Second of all, I believe we need to be very aggressive with our business community, courting them back to the downtown core here in San Francisco. You know, we used tax incentives to great effect in the mid-2010s when I was in office under then Mayor Lee's leadership. We really transformed a neighborhood when City Hall was focused on that neighborhood in the mid-market area to great effect. I believe we need to do the same downtown once again. We also need to learn our lessons, right? Twitter at the time became the poster child for that legislation. They came in with their own cafe and their own dry cleaning and gym. You know, it didn't support the small businesses in their surrounding neighborhood. We need to do it different, do it better. You know, I think often when I used to work downtown in the finance industry, I was at the 120 Kearny building. We drove just past it on the way to come to this event. And the Crocker Galleria at the time, all 3 levels were fully leased up. Took 45 minutes to stand in line for lunch downtown at the Crocker Galleria, and now 2 stores are open in that entire complex. To me, that is not a sign of progress. That's a sign of we need change, and we need to be aggressive with our business community, bringing back vibrancy to downtown. And long-term, without a doubt, we need to focus on conversion from commercial to residential. You know, Wall Street, I talk about often in the 80s in New York City, was a ghost town on the weekends, but they made a long-term commitment to the conversion to residential in that downtown area in Wall Street. Over 20 million square feet of office space has been converted. Here in San Francisco, I believe we need to think along the same lines, but not about these 10 to 15 buildings that people talk about today. But in my mind, we got to be creative, think bolder from a vision perspective. What about these Class B and Class C buildings downtown that have no tenants in them today? What if we allow them to demo What if we upzone the financial district, commit to different tax vehicles like state increment tax financing vehicles inside of City Hall for these projects? We allow them to pencil today. We get people back to work, start building for the future of downtown, start building that vibrancy back. That's a vision for downtown, at least from my point of view, that I can get really excited about.
Can you share more about that vision? And you talk a lot about diversification. What do you mean by that?
Well, look, the reality is coming out of COVID, San Francisco was over-indexed to tech, which was over-indexed to work from home. Now, I don't believe it's an excuse, but it's reality. Other cities had the same issue. They're all back. San Francisco, post-COVID, is the worst U.S. city in terms of economic recovery. And that to me is unacceptable. I've never seen San Francisco on the bottom of any list my entire life, except for now, in terms of economic recovery post-COVID. So for me, the vision of downtown San Francisco as it relates to our economy, the name of the game has to be diversity. It has to be hospitality, which has always been the core. But again, that went away because of our conventions and because of the core issues around safety, public safety, and street conditions. But then technology is going to be a big part of it, but it's not the only thing. I believe we need to be very aggressive with our technology community to bring employers back to the downtown core. But then it's a diversity of other uses and other businesses as well. Again, when you once again focus on these core issues and make it a safe and clean environment for employers and employees to be, I've talked to plenty of large corporations that want to come back to San Francisco, if not their headquarters, a second headquarters, the HQ2s that are being talked about around the country. They're willing to do it, but not under this leadership, not under this government. They don't have faith in the future of our city. And I'm running for mayor because I believe I can bring that type of continuity and faith in the future of our city downtown back to City Hall.
Hospitality, tech, what else?
Hospitality, tech, again, financial services has always been a big part of downtown. Many of these companies have left in the pre-COVID and post-COVID era. That has to be a big part of it as well. And look, long-term, when I think about building the downtown of the future, one of the scariest parts to me of downtown today, again, driving over here through the downtown core, down Montgomery, is how empty it is. I mean, a complete ghost town compared to where we used to be. So to me, as I think about public safety street conditions, I think about tax incentives to bring employers back to the downtown core. I think about the long-term conversion to residential from commercial. But then I think about, okay, once we do have that in place, and this is a few years down the road to be sure, then we can really focus on this urbanist vision where, you know, when people leave after hours, when their cars are gone from the downtown core, let's close off streets. Let's allow people to walk in between bars and restaurants, nightlife and entertainment venues. That to me is this urbanist vision we've talked about quite a bit. We're so far from that today. But again, with a change of leadership, a commitment and dedication to this, I believe we can build an exciting future for our downtown core.
Public safety is a big campaign issue. How will you protect the public, fight crime, and work with the various agencies like the SFPD and the SFDA to ensure safety in our city?
That's a great question. Look, as I talk to people around the city of San Francisco, in every single neighborhood, it is the consistent number one theme that people grapple with. I know our family, a year and a half ago, our home was broken into and burglarized in the middle of the night when we were sleeping upstairs with our 3 children. Our car was stolen 3 weeks ago, right in front of our house. And our experience is just everyone else's lived experience here in San Francisco today. Dear friends of ours over the weekend, their home was burglarized with their children sleeping inside on Saturday night. Happy Father's Day when they woke up on Sunday morning. So to me, it is the number one issue we have to focus on. And it's an issue that I focus on when I was in City Hall before, as a member of the Board of Supervisors, when I chaired our budget committee, and as mayor. So what do we have to do specifically? Number one, I believe we need a new police chief. I think Chief Scott's a good man. But the reality is the average tenure of a police chief in the U.S. is 3 years. He's been here close to 8. We need a new police chief that's going to come in, partner with a new mayor to fight for increased staffing, fight for increased budget, fight against the police commission in its current form, and be aggressive representing the officers in our police department. We have some of the best men and women in our San Francisco Police Department. We just need more of them, and we need a leader who's going to fight for them. Second of all, I believe we need to fight for increased budget dollars inside of City Hall. Our current mayor defunded the police department 2 years ago to the tune of $120 million, which that year represented about 20% of the operating budget of our police department. To me, that's simply the wrong priority. That is not prioritizing public safety. That's actually moving away from it. It's an election year. I get people can change their tune during election years. But my consistency inside of city government, certainly as budget chair and partnering with Mayor Lee, was to increase our police budget every single year, to increase our staffing levels every single year. And then lastly, it comes down to staffing. By the time I left office as mayor, our police department was over 2,350 officers. We're down 600 plus since then. That means that over 25% of our police department essentially has been eviscerated since I left office. It is no wonder public safety is a huge concern for the city of San Francisco right now. So to me, all those other issues trickle down to police staffing. How are we going to do that? Let's make sure we aggressively implement the DROP program. Super supportive of Supervisor Dorsey's ballot measure proposal. I called for that in the beginning of my campaign. I'm glad he's doing it now. We need to massively increase lateral hiring and then fully commit, as we did before when I was in office, to fully funding our police academy. Allow the academy to operate 52 weeks out of the year. We average 5 police academy classes with over 50 recruits for 5 years. That brought our police staffing levels up. Right now, our current mayor, 3 academy classes a year on average, and the last one graduated 15 people. That's not a commitment to long-term staffing, and that is what I will restore back into City Hall.
Adding on to that, you served as a Board of Supervisors for 7 years and also as interim mayor in 2018 for 6 months. It was a different time before the pandemic. Yep. And you've said that we need to do things differently for safety. How do you thread your time then versus the change of the city versus the things that you're talking about?
Look, policing has changed over time, right? We implemented over 200 plus federal reforms. Again, I think Chief Scott, why I say he's done a good job for what he's been there for to do. And I'm proud of that. Policing is not the same as it was years and years ago, and we need to reflect that here in the city of San Francisco. However, to me, that doesn't mean we should defund the police department. That doesn't mean we should have 25% less officers on the streets of our city and expect public safety to be the same. To me, I believe the number one job of our government is to protect our residents. It's something they can't do individually, and that's why government exists. And right now, we have an administration inside of City Hall that has failed to focus on that. Failed to focus on that in an appropriate way, in a manner that actually protects the residents of our city. It was always my number one issue when I was in office before. Look, I come from a background of law enforcement. My dad was a U.S. Air Force pilot in Vietnam. His father was a New York City police officer and a beat cop. I believe in our law enforcement officers here in San Francisco, and I believe we need a mayor who's going to be very prolific moving forward, not only to change who's in the mayor's office, but to have a mayor that's saying, you know what, I support law enforcement here in San Francisco. I will support them in their careers. We will hold people accountable in any department, including our police department or any other law enforcement department if they act out of line. But that being said, we support law enforcement here in town. We're going to support them in their careers. That doesn't exist today, and I look forward to bringing back to City Hall, and I think we'll make a demonstrable difference in the everyday lives of our residents.
Since the Supreme Court's hearing on the Grants Pass case, what is your plan for how we'll manage our homeless, unsheltered population?
Well, obviously, we'll see what happens with the Supreme Court decision, and should be expecting that relatively soon here. But I think how the mayor is currently handling it is a great demonstration of the difference in leadership styles we bring to the table. When I was mayor in 2018, we cleared out the large tent encampments in San Francisco. We did it with compassion and respect. But when someone said no to our offer of shelter or housing, we took their tents away. And after a number of months, all of the large tent encampments in our city were gone. I believe the sidewalks of our city belong to everybody. They belong to families. They belong to the elderly. I say often, I'm very sensitive. My dad, who's now 87, a little bit less stable on his feet than he was when he was an Air Force pilot. He took a fall the other week and was hospitalized and went to rehab. And I don't want to have him walk out into the street to avoid a tent encampment to go to his local grocery store. That shouldn't be the future of San Francisco that the mayor supports. This mayor has been because of different legal opinions and advice inside of City Hall, reticent to do anything about tent encampments. In fact, homelessness is on the rise again in our city, which to me is unacceptable, and has not done anything. I would rather be a mayor that actually fights for the right policies, that giving the differing legal opinions about the Ninth Circuit injunction, I would still be removing tent encampments as I did before as mayor, because it's the right thing to do, A, for the people living in these tent encampments, because nobody's getting better by sleeping in tents at night on our streets. It's better for the residents of our city. You think about the Tenderloin. I mean, we can get to the drug crisis, and maybe we will here in terms of talking points. Highest percentage of families in San Francisco, and we allow this type of behavior and this type of street behavior to flourish. To me, that's unacceptable out of the mayor's office. I would rather do the right thing for the rest of San Francisco, including these individuals living in tents, take these tents away. And if someone wants to sue me in my capacity as mayor because they don't agree with it, they're welcome to do so. But I would rather do the right thing first, be a strong leader. It's what we're missing inside of City Hall right now, what I will bring back to room 200.
You said that you cleared the tents in 2018 in 6 months. Can you share how that happened? Because that's pretty quick timeline. Is that your timeline for if you are elected?
Yeah, so what I said specifically, to be super clear and precise, that we cleared all the large tent encampments. So when I became mayor, the tent encampments had started to grow quite a bit. There were tent encampments that were 30, 40, 50 strong in size, certainly behind the Best Buy, by Rainbow Grocery. They were out by close to where we live, by Trader Joe's along the Sonic, different parts of San Francisco. By the time we left office, there was no grouping greater than 5. And the way we did it was a consistent effort. First of all, I went out as mayor with our departments to actually clear tent encampments. I told them they couldn't clear the streets before I got there and power wash, which they're off to do in the city of San Francisco. And I said, second of all, no media. This isn't a press opportunity. This is about showing you that I care about this issue and will work on it with you. That type of leadership, again, in my view, is missing inside of City Hall. And so what we did is we had a consistent effort. Sure, the first or second time you tell somebody who's choosing to live on our streets, doesn't want to come into shelter, that, hey, we're going to take your tent away, they might get a new shelter, a new tent, move around the corner. But you know what? After a few months of time, what we started to see is a much greater increase in conversions into shelter, and then ultimately people just leaving the city of San Francisco because we became inhospitable to individuals choosing to live in tents on the streets of San Francisco because that was the lifestyle that they wanted. I don't believe that should be the future of San Francisco, that the mayor allows to happen on our streets, and it certainly won't happen when I'm mayor again.
So you want no tents on the street, or what is your stance?
Of course I want no tents on the streets. Again, I don't believe anybody is getting better by sleeping in tents on the streets of San Francisco. The health issues that exist inside these tents, the public safety issues that exist, the rape and the arson is off the charts, and it doesn't get talked about enough. So to me, we're doing right by these individuals, also doing right by the rest of the city of San Francisco. To me, it shouldn't be the future of our city. What I've talked about is the large tent encampments that exist again today. We'll do it in the first year in office. I want to make sure we give us the time and the ability to do so. If we can do it quicker, all the better for all of us.
And what will it take to keep them off?
Again, here we go. A great point. Consistent effort, right? This is the policy that I implemented when I was mayor. All these large tent encampments went away. But when you don't have a consistent focus on this, then they start to come back. And then homelessness, once again, here we see on the rise in San Francisco again. So to me, as I think about the tent encampments and the homeless, as I think about the drug crisis on our streets, it is all about having a strong vision, a strong, compassionate policy. But then more than anything is consistency. This doesn't happen overnight. This happens when you are consistent. We have to flip the reputation of our city of San Francisco from a city that is hospitable to people who choose to come here to live in tent encampments, who choose to come here to abuse fentanyl with their addictions in the Tenderloin, South of Market areas. We have to flip our reputation to a city that is actually not condoning it, not conducive to living that lifestyle. And I believe we can have a dramatic effect on our city.
What's your vision for city planning? It can take years for small businesses to get permits to open a restaurant or bar, but carts are allowed to serve food and drinks on the sidewalk. What's your view?
Yeah, a completely revisioning of where we're going or where we've been. Specifically relating to the last issue, it is absolutely unequivocally unfair to have people paying commercial rents and allowing street vending to continue as it is here in the city of San Francisco. That is not something that will be allowed to exist when I am mayor. We have these open air markets, drug markets and otherwise, that continue to flourish. There was a video posted last night of a little baby in an open air fentanyl market here in the city of San Francisco the other night on Market Street. I mean, what are we doing as a city? How are we allowing this to continue? You know, my fear is that the city of San Francisco has gotten conditioned to accept this as normal. It is not normal. It is not okay. And I take it very personally when we see little kids raising 3 children here in San Francisco. That is not okay and not something that I will allow to happen as mayor. Now, the reasons for some of this, again, a depletion of our police department. We don't have enough officers to enforce the law. That's fair. That's why we need to build that back here in the city of San Francisco. And then the broader question around planning, generically speaking. You mentioned around small businesses, and we can talk in detail about that. But I also see it as it relates to building housing here in our city. You know, both, I will tell you, we did a little work to our home the other year when I was out of office. And the only permit that we needed to ask neighbors to bless, so it took multiple months, was when we took the incredibly illegal deck that we inherited when we bought the place. Encompassed 3/4 of our backyard, had a 200-year-old tree running through it. It was massive. We wanted to take it down and build a legal deck. But that required multiple months hosting coffee and donuts with our neighbors, who are wonderful, by the way. We're blessed. But that shouldn't be the case, right? And the fact that when I submitted a permit inside of our planning department, I said the first time, because I was naive, I said, how long is it going to take? And by the way, this is a former mayor who was very naive. I said, how long is this going to take for you to get back to me? They said, could be 2 months, could be 2 years. Depends when it gets to the top of my pile. That's not a response that's okay out of city government. I fundamentally believe our government is here to serve our residents, here to serve our businesses and our visitors in San Francisco. To me, we need that mantra doesn't exist today. The fact that people working inside of City Hall only come to work 1, 2, or 3 days a week right now is unacceptable. I've been very clear. As soon as I come back as mayor, 5 days a week back in the office. Government should be a constituent, consumer-facing business. That's the way I view it. We are here to serve the residents, and I will bring that back to City Hall.
Zoning. What about zoning in terms of 6 to 8 story buildings and developing the West Side?
Look, I believe I've been very pro-housing my entire career inside of City Hall. We did so much infill housing inside of District 2 when I represented that neighborhood, or those neighborhoods. We kickstarted multiple processes that will end up building more housing on the north side of San Francisco than any other time in history. So I think about the CPMC project, 3800 California, the UCSF Laurel Heights site, the 3333 California project, and then the Lucky Penny site right there in the corner of Geary and Masonic that has become a wonderful mural for the city of San Francisco, but should be housing instead. And so I'm a huge pro-housing believer here in San Francisco. And what we've done in our track record over the last X number of years, when we've really been lit a fire by the state under us to produce more, we're supposed to be producing approximately 10,000 units of housing a year. Last year was 2,000 units we produced. So to be clear, it's not working. Oh, by the way, I think it was as of last month, we approved 16 units of housing in our city. Not 1,600, 16,000, 16 units of housing. We're supposed to be building 10,000 a year. It's not working. So to me, I think about housing in 3 buckets. 1 is zoning. Number 2 is legislation. And then 3 is mayoral directives around our planning and DBI departments. So zoning, in my opinion, we can exceed the state mandated goals. I don't believe every neighborhood should look the same. That's not my view of the city of San Francisco. I believe our current mayor's approach earlier to upzone every single neighborhood in the same manner, same fashion is lazy and quite frankly not respective of the city of San Francisco where we should be. Look, our neighborhoods are what makes us unique, but we need to build everywhere. I do believe the greatest opportunity for building additional units is here in the downtown, South of Market and Mission Bay cores, without a doubt. But we also need to build in every single neighborhood. I've talked quite often about building along transit corridors. I've talked often about form-based density throughout the city. Talked often about supporting legislation in different parts of our city. Supervisor Engardio's corner lot legislation, Supervisor Mandelman's 4 to 6plex legislation. So yes, I believe in that in all parts of our city. But also it's not going to work unless we combine it with legislation, right? I do believe we need to reduce inclusionary down to 10% in the city of San Francisco. I do believe we should repeal Supervisor Preston's doubling of the transfer tax because it's prohibiting transfers, or it's really stymieing more commercial transfers that will build more housing here in our city. And then long-term, short-term, it's also about mayoral directives around the planning department. I've heard streamlining planning for so long, I don't see it happening. We've been very specific, 14 bullet points. We'll do mayoral directives, not legislation, immediately to once again kickstart that process inside of City Hall to make sure it's effective, not just for people who live here today, but really the target has to be commercial developers that will add the volume of new units in our city that we need to really plan for the future of San Francisco.
You just mentioned transit. Transit's vital for the functioning of a world-class city.
Yes.
Do you support this? And what are your plans to transport people to the heart of San Francisco?
100%. I say often the city of San Francisco today is not the city that I grew up in. When I grew up, I rode Muni by myself from third grade on. Transferred buses around the city of San Francisco. I would not dream the third graders are doing that today, because it's not happening. And to me, I fully believe in our transit first policy as a city. We need to have greater, more reliable public transportation. I do believe we need to have more protected bike lanes throughout the city of San Francisco. As a family, we walk quite a bit. We bike quite a bit. We use Muni, not as much as other modes at this point in time, although for a few years we were doing that. And also we drive. We have 3 kids. So, and by the way, running a mayoral campaign is also its own thing. But we are modern day Sherpas with sporting events and so forth. And that's what happens as a parent in San Francisco. And we love it, love every part of it. But the reality is we can't afford to have the next person move to the city of San Francisco with their own car and commute with that car around the city of San Francisco. We'd be more gridlocked than we are today. So I believe in it. And I think specifically around downtown, because I think it's a great question, doesn't get phrased that way enough. Downtown's recovery will never happen without great Muni and great BART. Now, I know they're facing fiscal cliffs. The fiscal conservative and people come out as well as me. That's kind of where I come from. I'm fiscally very prudent. However, we have to invest in our public transportation, including BART, from a regional basis if we want downtown to recover. It will never happen if BART falls off that fiscal cliff and ceases to exist or is a shell of itself. That is what allowed so many people to commute in the city of San Francisco on a car-free basis. So we need not only great Muni, but a great regional transit as well, and a huge supporter.
From what you've learned at Thayer Ventures, which focuses on travel and transportation, how is that knowledge going to apply to transit in San Francisco? Does it?
Well, look, we were an investment firm focused on technology companies building the future of San Francisco. Building the future of the world. To be quite frank with you, we actually had no companies operating in our city. To me, it's about investing and thinking about where's innovation and what's next for the city of San Francisco, right? It's about believing in autonomous vehicles, that they are going to be part of the future of our city and making sure we create an environment, that allows them to exist and flourish, but also holds them accountable, right? I believe right now what happened with Cruise the other year when they weren't being transparent with the city of San Francisco. I remember the early days of Uber here in the city, and they would not be transparent with our city government. That is not okay. There has to be a relationship of mutual understanding where there is transparency between government and these new technology companies on the streets of our city. That hasn't existed in the past, and something as mayor that I will continue to demand, because I believe it's part and parcel of a good working relationship long term.
Year after year, the city seems to struggle to balance its over $15 billion budget. You are chair of the Board of Supervisors Budget and Finance Committee. Do you see the city as having a revenue problem or a spending problem?
We definitely don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem, my point of view. Look, I believe that my time as budget chair and then as mayor was very informative. First of all, I believe we had great success during those periods of time. I created legislation in partnership with my colleagues on the board when I was budget chair during our years of excess revenue, principally because of increased transfer taxes on commercial properties downtown. We created a legislation that when we exceeded 105% of projected revenue, every incremental dollar we raised as tax revenue, 75% of that went into budget reserves. Put over $500 million away during my time as budget chair. Because of that legislation, it's all been spent down, to be clear. That budget reserve doesn't exist today, which is not a shock. To me, we need a mayor who's going to come in with a finance background and lead and make sure that we prepare for the future of our city. Look, there's so many ways and areas we can talk about in terms of spending. I'll focus on one. When I was mayor, 2018, the budget was $11 billion. Last year was 14.6. So roughly $3.5 billion of growth over the course of 5 years. Of that $3.5 billion of growth, over $2 billion annually is going to community health and welfare as a broad bucket. Now, I ask people all the time in San Francisco, have you seen over the last 12 months an additional $2 billion of spend on behalf of the city of government of San Francisco around community health and welfare? And everyone either chuckles or shakes their head. To me, some of the most inefficient spending in our city's history over the last X number of years, specifically to target and hone in on homeless spending around nonprofits. I want to be the first to say there are some great nonprofits here in town in San Francisco that we need to support. And if they do receive city funding, many that should be receiving more because they're doing great work in the city of San Francisco. But I was clear the day I launched my campaign that we would fully audit all of our homeless nonprofit spending in San Francisco. The honest answer today, just for homeless services alone, the city of San Francisco funds 258 different nonprofits. The worst part is that there are 9 different city departments that fund these homeless nonprofits. In multiple instances, 6 different city departments fund the same nonprofit, but there are no measurement tools in place, and there's no collaboration around that. Inefficient, ineffective, inappropriate, wasting taxpayer dollars. We're going to rein that in a very big way and make sure we really prepare for the future of San Francisco from a fiscal perspective.
What else would you cut?
Look, that's the biggest bucket as well. I will say, contracting out has been a big problem here in the city of San Francisco. I think led to was very conducive to a lot of the corruption that we've seen in the city of San Francisco, doling out hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts within different city departments. So I believe we need to rein that in. At the same point in time, to me, it makes no sense where since COVID, the city population has decreased 7%, but our government headcount has increased 8% at the same time. No business would run that way. Nobody ever operates that way except for the city of San Francisco. And to me, we need to correct that as well.
Let's talk about the city's narrative. How would you summarize it, and is it real or not?
I think the narrative that has existed, that has grown to represent the city of San Francisco now on a national, international basis is based in reality. It's been exacerbated for sure. But there is truth in what's going on. And I appreciated the fact that last year was attempted to be a marketing campaign around San Francisco. I just believe it's premature. We need to start fixing the issues on the ground first before we can start marketing a different San Francisco. When you continue to have crime like we have today, when you continue to have homelessness on the rise and the drug crisis that we have, where we're breaking our own record every single month and year of drug overdose deaths on our streets, that's not something to market. We need to fix that first, or certainly start going in the right direction. Then it's something to market as a city of San Francisco. I believe that the videos of the smash and grabs at Union Square started to really crush our reputation nationally and abroad. And I will tell you, with my work and job for the last 5+ years since I left office, I travel quite a bit, frankly, too much. And I have heard from, it was always the case that you said you were from San Francisco, and that was met with a sense of awe and envy. And I will tell you, from the Middle East to Europe to everywhere in the U.S. I've been, including Albuquerque, New Mexico, some amazing people down there, people now ask, what's wrong? And I'm sorry, you live in San Francisco. Why do you still live there? My short answer is it's worth fighting for. But at the end of the day, our reputation is real, and how it's grown and been diminished is very real. And I believe it's based in reality. It's those smash and grabs. But you know what? What gets me? Is every single day in our neighborhoods, these Walgreens and CVSs are getting looted every single day. Today. I hear it from merchants, I hear it from neighbors all the time. So let's fix the issues on the ground first. Let's have a mayor that's going to be a leader, that's going to be focused on these core issues, with a strong vision for our city, fund those measures and fund those initiatives and that vision. Start making a difference in terms of public safety and street conditions. Then we can go about marketing the city of San Francisco, and you will have no bigger cheerleader for our city than me when I'm mayor of San Francisco. And we've actually made progress, and we can start marketing our city once again nationally and internationally.
What is your leadership style? As an example, how would you work with the Board of Supervisors?
Oh, that's a good one. To me, I'm always one to lead by example. A few things. Number one, the last 30 years, we've had a progressive Board of Supervisors and a moderate mayor. I'd suggest it's only the last few years nothing's gotten done inside of City Hall. Having been a supervisor, having been mayor, I will tell you 90% about what the mayor does has nothing to do with the Board of Supervisors. You're running your mayoral departments. And I think our current administration is doing their darndest to blame everybody else for the city's woes except the mayor's office. But you know what the reality is? Most of what you do is running your mayoral departments. I talk about it often. When I was mayor, as part of my 2 years of having 3 children, but being in drop-off and pick-up Nirvana in San Francisco because they were all at the same school. So we dropped them off at 8 in the morning, and I was at my desk at 8:15. We cranked all day. We brought in department heads, brought out the whiteboards around conference tables, and took a lot of hard work around vision, holding people accountable, working with teams and underlying staff. That doesn't exist today inside of City Hall. And why, to me, experience matters so greatly in this race. Someone who's been there, done that, knows the levers to pull, and actually can get after it starting day one in office. But then when I was on the Board of Supervisors also, as many people here in the room who I've had relationships with over the years will tell you, I occupied that center-right part of the political spectrum. I made it my priority, to many people's chagrin, to work with people on the progressive left and reach across the aisle and build deep relationships there. And at the end of the day, because I believe the residents of San Francisco pay elected officials salaries to work together, not to blame each other and walk away and make it personal like it exists today in City Hall. So I work with folks. When I was budget chair for 4 years, every year the budget passed unanimously with generally little to no drama, certainly compared to the way that it used to be done before with kind of drunken episodes until 5 in the morning in City Hall. That didn't happen when I was the chair of the budget committee. We passed really important pieces of legislation, including around mental health, Laura's Law with the support of Supervisor Campos at the time. Unlikely allies on the Board of Supervisors. We disagreed on 95% of issues, but we worked together on a relationship to find common ground. I give Mayor Lee great credit for setting that kind of calm tone when he came to City Hall, but the current atmosphere in City Hall around blaming each other, making it personal and walking away is not conducive to actually getting things done inside of City Hall, and I don't believe represents the best interests of the residents of our city, and my leadership style will change that.
Given your private sector background, how will you work with businesses?
Look, I think coming from the private sector, having, the only candidate running for office that has held significant jobs in the private sector for over 20 plus years makes a difference because it informs your point of view about how to operate and how proactive, quite frankly, the next mayor of San Francisco needs to be with our business community. I think one of the biggest shocks to me around Macy's and the Nordstrom's announcements, well, they were shock value in and of themselves, but the fact that they caught the mayor's office off guard. I mean, what does that tell you? There's no relationships with major asset owners in town, the major lenders in town, the major tenants in town. I've worked in the capital markets before. I know exactly who's operating here in the city of San Francisco, already proactively engaging with so many of our real estate development teams here in the city, so many lenders across our country that are operating here in San Francisco, but right now will not lend to the city of San Francisco any development project because they have no faith in the current government of our city. That, to me, is the type of mayor we need who knows exactly how the capital markets operate, knows how development's going to operate, what's on the minds of businesses and employers alike, and is going to be super proactive courting our business community back to San Francisco. That's, to me, what we need in San Francisco and what I believe I can bring more than any other candidate, bar none, unequivocally to this race.
If you win, what would success look like for the first 100 days of the new term?
Great point. Great question, I should say. I think it's key measures of success around the core issues that I talk about all the time, around public safety, street conditions, and the economy. Number one, public safety, will have a new police chief. The next mayor will be sworn in January. Budget's year-round, but it culminates generally at the end of the summer. So I would say first 8 months, not 100 days. So I'm not answering your question directly, but we will have a readjustment within our budget inside of City Hall to fully fund public safety. And then police staffing drop program will be implemented. We will refocus on lateral hiring quickly, and then funding our police academy again, which will take the longest time inside of City Hall. Street behavior, the tenant encampments will enact that policy right away. We will see a marked decrease in the homelessness on our streets of our city. In terms of the drug crisis, same thing. We will be aggressive getting people off the streets of our city into, whether it be shelter, housing. If it takes short periods within our jail system, we will do that as well. Give them a chance to save their lives. Get them off the streets by any means necessary, legally. Focus on saving lives. That's my North Star. We'll see meaningful difference on the streets of our city. The one thing that will take the longest, I do believe, is our economy. I do believe the fundamental long-term success of our economy, if we're being honest, is premised on changing public safety and street behavior. Again, we'll then create an environment where people will consider San Francisco again for the long haul. That, to me, I can't predict to you exactly how long it's going to take. What scares me about downtown also scares me about Market Street in particular, right? From Nordstrom's and 4th, generally down to the Ferry Building, the amount of vacant storefronts in ground floor retail is really alarming. And our vacancy rate obviously has skyrocketed here in San Francisco and dominating the headlines as it should. But to me, we focus on the core issues. You focus on being proactive with our business community, and you let that take its course. But you have to be aggressive, in my view. That's a stance. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you it'll happen in year one, certainly in the first 100 days, because I do believe that takes longer term to convince people we're going to be on the right track as a city. But again, it will not happen unless there's a change of leadership inside of City Hall. And I do believe experience matters.
What is your vision for the future of the city of San Francisco?
Look, very simple. My vision for San Francisco generically is a city that is safe, a city that has clean sidewalks that belong to everybody, a city where we have a growing economy once again, where our neighborhoods are thriving, because I don't believe, I don't care, I should say, if you like to hang out in West Portal or Mission or the Castro or North Beach or Irving. To me, the heart and soul of our city is found in our neighborhoods. And that, to me, is something we're fighting for and protecting. And then, lastly, a city focused on families once again. Again, the city I grew up in, riding Muni by myself, isn't the city that exists today and isn't the city my children are experiencing today. But I will say, I left City Hall in 2018 because of my kids. At the time, they were 5, 10, and 12. And I'm a dad first, if you know me at all. I love coaching their teams. I love traveling with them. Liz and I, my wife, we were joking around the other night trying to tally how many sports teams I've coached since I left office in 2018. So it's 9 different teams I've coached, including tackle football, which was not an expertise of mine before. But when my daughter goes to college next year, so she's our oldest, I want her to be proud to call San Francisco home. I think more than anything, I want her to move back after she graduates. That means it's a city that's affordable with more housing, that's safe in terms of public safety, and that has job opportunities for young grads. None of those 3 conditions exist today. And so the next mayor has to be a strong leader with a strong vision for San Francisco to bring that back to our city. And so I'm doing this for selfish reasons because of my family, but I'm proud of it, and that's the type of mayor I'll be.
How do you want the world to see San Francisco?
To see San Francisco as the iconic city that we've always been. Again, I go back to, I'm running because I believe in our city. We have always represented, natural beauty, the innovation economy, in the 2010s, neighborhoods, but more than anything, always a spirit and ethos, and depends on the decade, a different spirit and ethos, and it was characterized in different ways. But a spirit and ethos that is unique around the world. I'm proud to be a born and raised San Franciscan. I embrace all of that. And I also believe that the city of San Francisco needs to have a government that works for the residents of our city as a support of that vision and doesn't crush our reputation on a national, international basis. That's why I'm running for mayor, to bring our city back and to restore our city as that iconic city in the world we've always been.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I appreciate the conversation. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much to our San Francisco host organizations, to the Museum of the African Diaspora, and to former Supervisor and Mayor Mark Farrell.
Thanks for having me.